No, you can't call your mommy, and you can't call Jaime.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, review. Thanks for your support. If you're an everydayer, you would have known UCLA's got a new defensive coordinator. We'll start with UCLA football. Man, oh man, it can't get any uglier, it seems, for UCLA men's hoops. All that and more here on Locked On UCLA. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's roll, right? Because with UCLA, the big news, at least coming from the previous day, was Ikaika Malloe being announced as the official defensive coordinator for Chip Kelly and company, with UCLA having someone with NFL defensive coordinating experience on the staff already. You've got many veterans already with this UCLA staff as a whole, and the Bruins ended up staying in-house with Ikaika Malloe, who is quite a recruiter, quite a developer of talent, as Chip said in that UCLA release. You see the work that's been done with the Murphy twins, getting them here, making them develop into talent. Obviously, Latu is the big name that everybody looks at with what he's going to do in the NFL draft, where he's going to go coming up. And yet, the big news of the day, where we start the episode, is a transfer portal commit out of Ghana. He was a former Michigan commit, flipped to Miami, went there for a year, was a bit banged up, does not have a lot of football experience, a 6'7", I believe 270-pound edge rusher, could be a defensive tackle. Yes, 6'7", Collins Acheampong, who finished his prep career at the likes of Rancho Santa Margarita. And if you're familiar with the Trinity League in Southern California, obviously you know all those Orange County powers over there. And while it's been a while since Santa Margarita's been a superpower, obviously, we'll get that out right now. You know, if you have paid attention to high school football in California, which only has like 2 teams now that compete, Santa Margarita has to compete with the big dogs, and Collins is a big-time athletic, some call it the athletic freak, right? And when we talk recruiting, we always talk about it in terms of LinkedIn. And when you look at the likes of Ikaika Malloe, whose name was mentioned as a reason why he came over to UCLA, right? Collins mentioned in his article, I believe, between 24/7 Sports and On3, I was reading between both of them, maybe he wasn't the biggest fit in South Florida. Miami's got a pretty deep defensive line room, and for somebody who's banged up towards meniscus, his story's rather incredible when it came to, he wanted to be a pilot. He actually wanted to be a pilot. You'll fall in love. I believe we'll fall in love with this kid, how he develops, how he recovers from injury. We'll see how that develops over the next few years. Yet, I think that's a huge piece. And just think, hey, injured D lineman could be a very gifted athlete, and brought over by Ikaika Malloe, you get 3 strikes. Man, I'm not out. I'm actually in on that one after seeing what he did with Latu, how the D-line thrived last couple years, bringing in talent, and I just believe that could be a big thing. Collins Acheampong, who didn't play a lot of football in his freshman year, started as a basketball player. I was watching this thing, I believe it's produced by Canon Sports on YouTube, talking about during his time at Santa Margarita, his story coming over from Africa to the U.S., wanting to become a pilot. There's no pilot school where he's from, and eventually started playing sports, watch Giannis, and then next thing you know, he said he was dunking on 8-foot hoops, and he didn't realize how big the basketball hoops were when he came to the U.S. that they're 10 feet tall. And yes, he's 6'7", so that's still probably not an issue for him, but just seeing the difference from one place of the world to the next and not knowing, just the world of sports that it was here in America, and all of a sudden he started as a basketball player, transitioned into football more full-time, finished from Fairmont Prep in Anaheim, I believe, and then turning into Rancho Santa Margarita and Eagle to finish off his career. Didn't have too much playing time, so he's very raw as a talent. But when you hear 6'7", 270, man, maybe UCLA decides to turn him into offensive lineman because the Bruins would love a physical beast on that side of the football. Yet they're replacing a lot on the D-line. That was the strength of this team. And I can't just tell you, guy. There's no real world where I'm expecting him to be the single individual player to come over and dominate, whether it's like Latu or the Murphy twins at least, and replace them in year one with practically minimal football experience, did not register any stats as a Hurricane and as a Miami Hurricane at the U. I'm not going to tell you that, but someone who could develop with 4 years of eligibility, that could be something very special coming down the line, right? And if that's just with the portal now closing officially, I wonder what commits the Bruins are going to pick up by the time spring practice comes around and everything between. Can they steal another high school commit, flip someone else at the last moment? But that's a nice get. If you're getting guys who have so much potential in the portal, that's a good guy to go after. There's no better way to put it if you're UCLA and Ikaika Malloe. And it's, I think, quite fitting that someone who committed over the weekend, Ethan Young tweeted the boom, and we were waiting. We finally got it a few days later, half a week later, and that UCLA announces the D coordinator. And the first guy who commits after that is someone who names Ikaika Malloe. I think that's a nice marriage there between UCLA getting the right defensive coordinator who can recruit, hopefully develop this into a talented young man and put it into a UCLA Bruin defensive folklore, just like Latu and the rest of the defense has been last year in 2023. Now, that's a lot of weight to put on someone's shoulders right there. But he looks like a bright young man. I wish the best for him. I would encourage, type in Collins Acheampong, read a little bit more about his story coming over from Ghana. And it's pretty remarkable. And because he was born in September, his father unfortunately passed away when he's 1 year old. So all this with three siblings, his mother working, he said 70 hours a week just to get him into a school in his hometown for a better education, then to come to UCLA. It's quite the story to go all the way around and now officially be a Bruin. So even if it doesn't pan out on the field, we hope the best. I'm not sure how many airplanes have enough space for a 6'7" pilot, if that's still what he's actually going towards after a year of schooling. But he looks like a bright mind watching the interview, things I've read, and could absolutely be a very big-time talent on the field. And I hope that develops into something special over the next few years as a UCLA Bruin. All right? New job, LinkedIn Jobs. This recruiting segment brought to you by LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Coming up next, man, speaking of a tough job, speaking of an absolutely tough job, it's Mick Cronin trying to turn this UCLA team into a competitive team. You can't call your mommy. She ain't going to help you. That was Mick Cronin's quote after the game when I thought they could actually play some offense against Stanford, because Stanford is not good defensively. They don't come in with extremely good defensive metrics. They're a mediocre defensive team. And the Bruins somehow looked worse, arguably the worst that they had looked all season long with this team that just makes it so hard to watch this year. All that and more coming up next on Locked On UCLA. All right, it's the new year. It's 2024. Maybe you saw all the exciting college football games come to an end. And you're like, hey, I want to bring that love and see what happens when it comes to March Madness, when it comes to college basketball, or all the exciting sporting events that happen in Southern California on any given day. And hey, Game Time has got you covered, because you don't need to worry when you go to the next big event. And not only sporting events, theater events, comedy, concerts, big things always happening in SoCal. They've got killer deals, flash deals, where if you go on the app, you can swipe and see, ooh, that's a cool deal, great seats, where in the Game Time app, you can always see where your seat are, full 360 view. And then you can look, hey, that's a good flash deal, down till right when, dare I say, the puck drops, the ball is kicked, the ball is tipped, the first pitch, whatever it is, look at it with Game Time, because they're obsessed with finding ways to help save you money on tickets with zone deals. Heck, they'll even give you credit for 110% of a difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less on a different place. So check out Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying, download the app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, create an account, use the code Locked On, LOCKEDON, Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, this is where we talk about basketball, men's basketball specifically, because the women are one of the top teams in the country, and it has been a joy to watch them, and I believe will continue to be a joy to watch them for the rest of the season. Now, we're talking about a team for UCLA and Mick Cronin that's 6-8, under 500 in Pac-12 play, 1-2 after starting off conference play with a win against Oregon State, dropped a winnable game against Oregon based on how it played out. Definitely a winnable game against Stanford at home, they were coming off a win against Arizona by 18 at home on New Year's Eve. And now I guess there's no reason to send out predictions for what UCLA is going to do in a given basketball game, right? I hadn't really given an official prediction. I've given keys, but I hadn't given a prediction. And I wrongfully, I wished my key and my prediction kind of went hand in hand. I wrongfully hoped for a 70-62 win for UCLA. They're favored, I believe, by 6.5 at home. And next thing you know, UCLA in this game, they came out, everything was going all right. 8 for 9 to start the game. They were getting easy buckets, and it looked like, they might run away with this one. They're up by 10. This can be on the back burner on the side screen. You can go eat dinner. You can go do something else. An earlier start time. Not too many fans in the stands for UCLA Stanford. The last time the Cardinal will come to Pauley Pavilion as a conference rival for UCLA. And it will be the last time they face off in basketball in Westwood for a very, very long time. The Bruins hadn't lost to the Cardinals since losing to them in Santa Cruz in 2021. And yet, UCLA, my keys were, do not turn over the basketball. Please score. The defense will be okay, even though there's times in that game where the Bruins did not look good defensively. Overall, the metrics, not too bad. It's the offense that is utterly atrocious. That let Mick Cronin in the postgame send out zinger after zinger. You can't call your mommy. She can't help you. And I added the Jaime Hawkins Jr. might be in town doing spinning fadeaway jumpers. He's not there either to help you over LeBron James. Having better numbers in the same night as a member of the Miami Heat, throwing it over the likes of a Los Angeles Laker king, if you will, right? Because the king and LeBron James, right? And then you've got what UCLA has now. How much has changed in a year for UCLA hoops? And we'll end the podcast kind of trying to correlate Cronin's first year as head coach to now, where it's younger, different guys learning his system. We'll get to that at the end. We're specifically right now looking at the atrocity that was the game last night. 59-53, they lost. They led by 8 or 10 very early in the game. Could not miss a shot, playing great basketball. The only difference is normally what happens for UCLA, sometimes they start slow or they play well and they're leading at half. They have ugly basketball, and then they have a last-minute surge where the game's a 1-point game, and then they do something dumb to cost themselves a chance to win a game that in the end and ultimately was winnable from the beginning. Not exactly the case in this game, where it was down to the final moments and it took a 30-foot three to quell any rally. Yet in this one, UCLA again turned it over 16 times. What was my one key? You're probably not going to be able to shoot the basketball, but you can't turn it over. Mick Cronin, in basketball, you've got to score points to win games. And in order for them to score more points, get more opportunities to throw up a couple more bricks and maybe get an rebound and put it back up, you can't turn it over. Who were the biggest culprits in this game? Well, Cronin did not give a lot of love to his bench in this game, considering the bench only scored 6 points. And that includes Brandon Williams and Will McClendon, two of the better scoring options from the bench. They did not get too much scoring opportunities, but they also did get the most minutes, 14 minutes. UCLA turned it over 16 times. Dylan Andrews 4 times, Sebastian Mack 3 times, and then Berke 2 times. As Cronin said, they find new ways to turn over the basketball and make offense look so bad. So bad. Stanford gives up close to 70 points per game coming into this game. Stanford is not a ridiculously good defensive team. To even make the point clear, they gave up prior to this game 75 points per game, the Cardinal. 75, close to it. They did not have a win away from Maples Pavilion. Yes, they had the biggest win of the year against Arizona for them that they're coming off the heels on, ending the new year, ringing in the 2024 calendar year with a lot of confidence. And then all of a sudden, UCLA just found a new low offensively. New low in this season. It is an absolute struggle. It is unbelievable that they scored 22 points less than a bad defensive team's average at home. At home, guys. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gents, whoever's watching, it is just ridiculous. Now they have a lot of heart and hustle defensively. They make teams struggle to score points. It's just the Bruins can't eke out any semblance of an offensive identity this year. I just don't understand what is so tough. It's one thing to not be able to shoot, but to not come in and handle a team packing it in and shooting and then turning it over 16 times. That is what is crushing to Cronin and this team. Standouts, well, I did like the fact that I asked Berke to score more. 13.7 shots. He showed some nice moves. He did have some ugly turnovers. Cronin even mentioned, I want him to shoot the ball. We have no scores. I need him to shoot the ball. Berke clearly needs to shoot the ball 10 or more times a game. He needs to have the ball in his hand, and the Bruins need him to jack up shots. Not take shots now. He needs to jack up shots. Throw up some nasty ones and hope they go in sometimes. Because he is one of the better pure shooters on this roster, even though he's not played that much in a UCLA uniform this season. And there are some mistakes Berke made defensively too. The Bruins are going to have to live with that. Bona. It's hard to play offense through him. He's not the strongest offensive player on this team, but he's clearly the most dynamic. It just doesn't come with a jumper and a three-point shot, which UCLA needs this year. Although UCLA struggles cannot all go to Bona because he had 4 blocks, 3 steals, and 9 rebounds in this game, including 4 offensive rebounds on 4 of 6 shooting for 12 points and nearly a double-double. This kid single-handedly saves even bad UCLA defensive rotations because this, you could argue, as good defensively as the numbers say, is probably worse if you watch on tape than what it actually says with the numbers because Bona saves their behind so many times with chase down, steals, knockaways, deflections, that hustle award. Bona is going to clearly win that. He is probably going to win Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. I would think. I haven't done any research. I'll tell you that. I haven't done any research on the rest of the Pac-12 as to who might win it. But I'm not sure you have to look much further than Adem Bona for who might be your top 1, 2, or 3 options to win that award. Simply because he is so dynamic when he doesn't foul, that when he's on the floor 35, 36 minutes a game, the opposition, even if they shoot well, is going to struggle to score 60 points. And that's a team averaging close to 80 coming in the game. It's the struggling fact that Andrews is 2 of 13. And this isn't going to be an Andrews slander party today, but clearly he is struggling to shoot the ball, whether it's trying to facilitate. He needs to take the open jumper. It just is not there. He had 4 points. And these last 4 games that the Bruins have struggled in, even when the win over Oregon State, his shooting numbers have not been there. 22%. We'll talk more on that later. Sebastian Mack, I want him to get to the free throw line 10 times. Even Cronin mentioned this. Hey, freshmen, they might not even get better. That's a fallacy. That's a terrible logic to think that, hey, these guys are going to get better automatically by the end of the year. Games get tougher. Scouting reports get better. More game tape. And these guys are still learning to play the game of basketball. Sebastian Mack, he mentioned, isn't taking 10 free throws a game anymore. How many free throws did I want Mack to take before this game? 10. And his free throw percentage, shooting-wise and attempts-wise, have both gone down. He was 2 of 4 in this game. Not that that would have changed anything if he made the other 2 free throws. But his inability to get to the line as much, or the team's backing off and letting him drive without too much contact, have found ways to defend him without sending him to the charity stripe, like that Marquette game where he single-handedly kept the team in the game with his great free throw shooting and getting to the line, stopping the clock, scoring the basketball. I thought that would be a sign of things to come. That is not kept going throughout the season, although he had 14 points, a little bit better of a shooting percentage, nothing better, but did hit a couple of threes. He's got a lot to learn in his overall game to dominate. Stefanovic has a shooting slump that is hurting this team. It's not all on him, but a team that severely needs any perimeter shooting needs Stefanovic to get red hot in a hurry. Red hot. He had 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Now, Nuba only played a couple minutes. Cronin had some very harsh words for what his couple of minutes spelled. 3 personal fouls and a turnover, 0 points. And what he says, hey, he's been around the longest. I thought he was the most coached up. That wasn't the case. Cronin's words, not mine. Adem Bona, just not getting extended minutes, can't make a bucket, and is not good enough defensively for the Bruins to utilize him over and over. Vide finally comes back, but goes 1 for 6. Needs to get his footing underneath him. Brandon Williams didn't get a lot of run time because he had 30 personal fouls in 14 minutes and only took a couple of shots. Then Feeble, 1 turnover, less than a minute of action, again gets yanked. Cronin says, it's on him, that's not on me. He's got to learn. McClendon, 2 shots taken, 2 points, only 1 3-pointer attempted. I wanted McClendon to take more shots. The Bruins need him to be more aggressive shooting the ball. Give some of Andrew's shots and Stefanovic's shots. Still let them take 5 shots. But if you sprinkle 4 more for McClendon coming off the bench, even if they're packing it in, he's just got to be able to take that shot. And I'm not sure if that's a Cronin coaching tactic. At this point, he's searching for offense, so I'm not sure he's going to tell everybody to start or stop shooting. But the Bruins need McClendon to take a couple more shots. Goodness gracious, from behind the arc. A team that is 23% from 3, could not shoot the basketball to save their lives in the second half, where they only scored 23 points. Goodness gracious. Now you look on the other side, you had Carlisle for Stanford, who could not miss from 3 near the end of the game, 17 points. He was the only Cardinal in double figures. Every single Stanford player that played in this game scored. Even Andrei Stojakovic, who had a hot start to keep Stanford in it coming off the bench, who would have been a prized UCLA recruit if he decided to go to UCLA instead of Stanford, getting a lot of PT. Even his poor shooting numbers are much, much better than just about everybody on UCLA's roster. That was a recruiting swing and a miss that the Bruins were unable to bring Stojakovic in as a class of 23 recruit. I think the Bruins would have truly loved him. Now, I wonder how he would have fit in the Cronin system, but just what he brings offensively is already leaps and bounds better than what the Bruins have shown this year. In a game where I am harping on the negative, UCLA, you look at a team who is averaging 80 on the other side, 38% from 3, 9 made threes per game. They kept them below that. 6 made threes of 20 attempts, so the percentage closer to 30%. Their shooting numbers, which are well above the mid 40%, they're 35%. So it's not like Stanford did a lot. They still turned it over 14 times. It was ugly. It was just the fact that the Cardinal went to the free throw line, converted on their free throws, 17 of 21, and did just enough to make light of terrible UCLA breakdowns at times, even though the defense still held the team under 60 points. They're doing good things defensively. They're not the best defensive team Cronin's won with, yet UCLA needs to figure something out on the offensive end. It is hard to sit here and watch this right now. It is. So what's next? What's next after falling to 1-2 in conference play, 6-8 overall this season? How are they going to grow and compete in the Pac-12 this year? The Conference of Champions not looking like its greatest champion is competing this year. What's next? I'll tell you next on Locked On UCLA. Well, the NFL's regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's win or lose. You get $150 in bonus bets. The app's super easy to use. You can do so in many different ways. Live same game parlays, whether you wanted to make it on UCLA or not, right? If you're sitting there and you're watching UCLA, you're like, this is a hot start. I'm going to go on the other side. If you're feeling negative that day, if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm going to hit the under. Or you might make a lot of money one time if you're going to go with the over and you're like, this game might actually go over, and you hit it. Maybe. I don't know. You could probably have some fun watching some games with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, last segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast. A lot of it has been a bit negative for UCLA because the basketball team, the men's side, has absolutely struggled. They have struggled this year. I have been on record saying on this show they needed some top 25 love. They needed some respect. I countered other hosts' arguments, Jeff Goodman saying this team's not going to make the tournament. That looks extremely on the nose, hard button, hot take right on the nose. And I decided to say that's a stupid argument. Well, who looks foolish now? Me. Now there's still time to change, absolutely. But that's just where this team is, right? A lot of upside, a lot of hope. And if they're going to win, it will be the ugliest basketball you will watch. If they are to win games, it is not going to be very pretty. You're not going to watch teams who half press and put up 80 points and go high flying. They're not going to shoot a lot of threes and do things like Stanford, who scores a lot and gives up a lot. This is a team that's going to drag a team down with them that is probably not going to score the basketball as much as they will on the opponent's end. UCLA, let's take a look at where they were 4 seasons ago. I've done this already too many times, but let's take it one more time because I looked at Ben Bolch, LA Times beat writer about UCLA hoops and football. He pointed out UCLA 4 years ago had a big surge after they played Stanford in early to mid-January and then had Cal, won the Cal game, and things somewhat turned around where they won 11 of their next 14 games to end the regular season before the pandemic canceled the postseason. And that actually got UCLA into some at-large first 4 NCAA tournament candidacy in that season, which they then turned in the next year, first 4 to Final 4. Here, UCLA in 2020, prior to a pandemic and prior to all the COVID nonsense, even though it was kind of swirling at the time, UCLA started 1-2, lost to SC, Washington State, beat Washington on the road to start conference play. Does that seem a little familiar? Then played at home to a Stanford team who at that time was actually 15-2 and unbeaten in conference play. UCLA lost to them to drop to 1-3 in Pac-12 play. Bruins were then 8-10 because they had played more games at that point. The schedule was a little different a few years ago. And there were 2 games under 500 in Pac-12 play. Cal coming to town, UCLA struggling to score points. Maybe not so much of the ugly losses, but there were some. I mean, I guess they were, right? Losing to Hofstra, losing to the likes of Cal State Fullerton at home. That wasn't a good Cal State Fullerton team. That wasn't ridiculously talented teams when they lost to BYU by 15, Michigan by 13. Their only road win had been a win against Chaminade. Is this all sounding familiar to this year's team? It absolutely is. Eerily similar. And it's a rebuild, right? Not a reload, retooling. It's a rebuild. It's a relaunching of an older roster with the freshman talent leaving for the NBA. You could argue if Amari Bailey stayed, if he could have paid as much NIL money for Hawkes to stay, it still wouldn't have been as good as what he's doing right now in the NBA. Couldn't pay as much money to keep Tiger in school for a 6th year after 5 years and 4 years playing. Jalen Clark's not ready to play yet. Can't go call your mommy. Can't go call Jaime. So where does this team go from now? Ironically, they're in a similar spot to 4 years ago. And for sometimes just one win changes the mojo and flips the switch. That wasn't the Oregon State game. Maybe it's the Cal game for UCLA this year, like it was 4 years ago. They beat Cal 50-40. Yeah, beautiful basketball. You absolutely know that was a fantastic game on January 19th, 2020. 50-40, UCLA won their game. Next thing you know, they go on a little bit of a run, 2-1, couple of 2-1 stints, and then they won 7 in a row, including at Arizona that year. A little different Arizona team that year, though. And then red hot heading into the first week of March at SC, where they competed to the final buzzer of their season that year. Can this happen? The Bruins are good enough defensively to make it happen. They are good enough defensively. And it's not even like Cronin's defense like last year. They don't even have the National Defensive Player of the Year, a sneaky good defender, Amari Bailey, Jaime Hawkins Jr., Tiger Campbell. That's not what they have this year. And yet, based on what Cronin asked, as much as he despises sometimes his team's defensive effort, they're doing things. They are doing things and kept a team who averages close to 80 points per game, nearly 20, 25 points lower than their average, closer to 20 points lower than their average. The amount of teams that have scored 70 points on the Bruins this year, it's hard-pressed to find it because it's only happened a couple times. Only twice has an opponent scored 70 or more points on UCLA this year, and naturally so, both those games were losses. When CSUN, who has been absolutely ridiculous since that game against UCLA, scored 76. The Bruins no-showed that game. And then the Marquette game in the Maui Invitational, 71-69, where the Bruins played some good defense and a late surge by the Eagles brought them back. So what does UCLA have? Cal at home, a Thursday weird road trip at Utah before coming back on a Sunday to play a home game against Washington in an early evening, late afternoon affair. And then they go to the Arizona schools with a road trip to USC. This is either the make it or break it part of the season. Make it or break it. In bracketology, Joe, everybody's cast UCLA off as a joke. And watching the offense absolutely is right now. But this is make it or break it. That's happened like 30 times this season, but this truly is. And if history repeats itself, if Cronin can get to these guys, it just takes a win. Might be an ugly win over a Mark Madsen-led team for Cal, but doing so and then maybe going to Utah, Big 12-bound Utes, the running Utes, you sneak a win over there? Now that's very positive thinking. Where do they need to go offensively? For a team that's seen its starting point guard shoot 12 for 53 in his last 4 games, 22%, 3 of 22 from 3. And this is not just the Dylan Andrews slander fest. It's everybody who can't shoot the basketball. They're all struggling. Adem Bona is the best player in his team, and that's 95% his defense and his rebounding and his athleticism. And just think of what Cronin got Bona to do. He finally got to Bona, his most experienced guy on the court in a UCLA uniform with time played and highest rated, and would have been an NBA draft pick if he wasn't hurt. And he fixed things, and all of a sudden, just him being on the court significantly changed the defense in 2 games. 2 to 3 games, him being on the court out of foul trouble has changed the defense dramatically. Dramatically. Now, if 1 to 2 more players can make that, I don't know who those guys are. I've just asked for Berke to get more shots. He needs more shots. He needs to take 10 shots a game. And I believe Cronin is working on that. But if you're going to throw it across the court in triple coverage, I can't help you. If it's Berke taking 10 more shots, clearly he is the shot maker, one of the shot makers on this team, and at the moment, the best in the last recent weeks. He's got to take more shots. I would like McClendon to be a little more aggressive offensively. Not that big of an ask. Then 1 to 2 guys have to make significant growth offensively. I can't tell you. I can't tell you who that is, because any guy who makes growth, anybody who makes any stride, it could go from Jan Vide, maybe they go to the depths of the bench, bring out Devin Williams, I don't know, maybe they put in a walk-on to shake things up just for Mick Cronin to tick off his team. I don't know. But if 1 to 2 guys show any semblance of growth with what UCLA has put on the court so far offensively, it might be shocking to see the team might grow exponentially, just from a little growth that we saw from Bona. If we see any growth like we see from a Brandon Williams coming into the game the last few weeks, in the middle end of December to now, if any of the starters show some growth, 3 less turnovers per game, slowly bring that number down. 1 or 2 more shots go in. That could be the difference between UCLA winning some of these games and losing. That is the difference. It's ugly. It's a struggle. It won't be pretty. And even if they start winning games, it won't be pretty. The cliche, winning cures everything. It won't cure an ugly shot, but it does help when you play good defense and you play smart basketball and you can start to win these games. That is where UCLA is right now, needing to win games to keep going. Now, this isn't going to cost Cronin his job. No, not this year. It is grow. He pointed out when he was the coach with Cincinnati in the Big East, They won, 4 to 5 straight games, shooting 37%, 3 of them against ranked teams. That was his quote. Now they've got to go out and do it against potential tournament caliber teams. And Washington on the fringe, Utah on the fringe. Those teams could flip-flop based on results. Arizona in coming weeks. This is a team that has the defense and the defensive presence in the middle and Bona to do so. Any offense could turn this season around. Any of it. It's just, you've watched it so many times, and your record says who you really are. And they are a team that has struggled to this part of the season to consistently play smart offense. And it's tough to watch sometimes. It is very tough to watch. Because Stanford is probably one of the worst defensive teams, numbers-wise, what they give up-wise, that they've played in the last few weeks. And they couldn't score against Stanford. And coaches will adjust. They'll just say, hey, we'll let you shoot. And if you turn it over, that's a bonus. A couple more threes, a couple less turnovers. All of a sudden, those 6-point losses will turn into a 1.50 to 49 win. And that is how UCLA is going to have to win games. It won't get prettier. It just might get more fun. All right? That's why that's the motto. It won't get prettier. It might get more fun. Don't call your mommy because she's not going to answer for missing jump shots. That's not what Mick Cronin said, but who knows? All right, here we go. That's going to wrap up Locked On UCLA today. A frustrating basketball one. Football gets a big recruit in the portal, and we'll see what that means moving forward for UCLA recruiting as they turn into a Big Ten member while UCLA slides in basketball in their final year of Pac-12 membership. We're going to talk more of this leading into the Cal game, leading into the rest of the weekend on Locked On UCLA. In the meantime, 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fights. Zach signing off. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.